Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, well, we're strapping in for something pretty different.
Yeah, this one's unique.
It's one of the most personal and, frankly, explosive journeys we've ever tracked. We're not looking at old texts today.
No dusty libraries.
No, we're diving into the kind of raw, embodied reality of one of our listeners. We're calling him Ali.
Right.
And he enrolled in this pretty rigorous Himalayan Zen school. Now, he was mainly there for the yoga massage part.
That was his primary focus, yeah.
But he ended up triggering this full-scale protocol of personal rebellion, really pushing back against the whole structure of the place.
It's an absolutely fascinating story.
Mm-hmm.
And the sources we have, they're quite something. It's a rare look inside, a personal crisis of conscience that turns into this direct challenge to the institution.
What kind of sources are we talking about?
We got everything from these really intimate, almost clinical self-analyses of his physical pain during meditation,
Wow.
right through to formal emails disputing policy. And then the climax is this truly stunning account of, embodied liberation. It's quite a narrative arc.
Okay. And the core conflict here seems to be what?
It's this fundamental paradox, really, the tension between trusting your own immediate bodily truth, what your own nervous system is telling you, and adhering to these codified spiritual traditions, even traditions held sacred for, millennia.
Got it. So our mission today is pretty clear. We want to unpack Ali's journey step by step.
Yeah, follow the breadcrumbs.
We need to understand this deep realization he had about, the flaws he saw in static meditation.
The courage it took to actually challenge the rules.
Nice. Policy stuff. And then there's this whole debunking of some pretty intense spiritual folklore that the system apparently used to keep people in line.
Oh, yeah. The mythology piece is wild.
And finally, this act of personal sovereignty, this rebellion. We want to pull out the universal lessons here, about surrender, when to surrender to your body and when to refuse surrender to the system.
It's exactly. Sovereignty versus surrender. That's the heart of it.
Okay, let's dive in.
So, we start with what Ali himself termed the postural heresy. And this wasn't just like minor discomfort he could ignore.
No,
this became the bedrock of his entire critique, intellectually, physically, of the mandatory Zazen, the seated meditation, which was, a really revered and required part of this Himalayan Zen course.
Right. Zazen is pretty central to Zen, isn't it? So where did his critique begin? You said physical.
Yeah, it starts right down at the level of biomechanics. Pain. He observed that forcing the body into these prolonged, static, often really unnatural positions, full lotus, half lotus, even deep kneeling.
Yeah, they can be tough.
They're fundamentally hostile to the human body, he argued. He details how these forced cross-legged positions, they just compromise blood circulation.
Right, the numbness, pins and needles.
Exactly. Lead straight to numbness in the legs, the feet. Peripheral neuropathy, basically. But, more critically, he felt sharp pain in his lower back. He noted that the lumbar spine, without any active movement or engagement, it just gets incredibly stressed.
It's like your body's alarm system going off.
Precisely. It's the nervous system screaming, danger, this isn't right.
And that physical warning, that pain signal, it triggered something deeper for him.
Oh, absolutely. It triggered his philosophical rejection of the whole thing. He started seeing the practice not as spiritual growth, but more like an injury protocol in disguise.
Injury protocol, wow.
Yeah, so it moves beyond just, this is uncomfortable, to targeting the whole underlying idea that pain equals purification.
Or
pain equals progress.
The classic no pain, no gain applied to spirituality.
Exactly. And he just rejected that. He labeled the discomfort, very precisely, as teleological masochism disguised as spiritual growth.
Okay, teleological masochism, let's break that down. Teleological means focused on an end goal.
Right. The belief that present suffering, the masochism, is necessary to achieve some ultimate future purpose. The teleology.
So suffering now for enlightenment later.
That's the promise. And he saw the result, this forced sitting, this sitting stiffness, as basically just spiritual posing.
Posing, like for show.
Yeah. He literally looked around the zendo, the meditation hall, and saw what he called the spiritual posers. People holding these agonizing positions just because the culture demanded it. He called it the theater of bodily suffering. Performed just to prove you're a real seeker or to fit this image of some ancient master. He wasn't interested in, a photo op of suffering. He wanted genuine immersion.
And his body was just screaming bullshit at the whole performance.
That's exactly the word he used in his notes. The body was screaming Bullshit at the dogma.
Okay, but I have to push back a little here. Because the common wisdom in meditation circles is often that enduring the discomfort is the point.
Right, training the mind.
Yeah, training the mind to separate from the body's demands. How do we know this wasn't just Ali, maybe looking for an easier path? What does his analysis say about that really entrenched idea?
That's a fair question. And his analysis offers a pretty nuanced, but ultimately a definitive rebuttal based purely on his somatic experience, his lived bodily truth.
Okay.
And this leads us straight into what he called the surrender paradox.
The surrender paradox. Tell me more.
He realized that his deepest insights, his most profound visions, those really transformative aha moments,
Yeah.
they rarely, if ever, happened while he was sitting upright in Zazen.
Really? Where did they happen then?
Almost invariably when he was lying down, horizontal, supine.
Lying down. That's interesting. Did he have a theory why?
He did. And it's neurobiological. It's based on how the body and brain work together during these different postures.
Okay, so what's the fundamental conflict he identified in Zazen?
Well, think about it. Seated posture, especially Zazen, which really emphasizes that vertical spine, it requires constant, low-level physical tension.
Right, you're holding yourself up.
You're fighting gravity constantly. So even if your mind manages to get a bit quiet, there's this ancient part of your brain, the sort of lizard brain.
The vestibular system.
Balance. Exactly. Responsible for balance. It has to stay hypervigilant. It's always on guard. So the very moment you start to truly surrender mentally, let go of that egoic control,
Yeah.
that part of the brain kicks in. It jolts you. It thinks you're about to slump over or fall.
So it pulls you back.
It yanks you back into vigilance, back into awareness of the body, of staying upright.
So you're trying to surrender your mind, but your body is forced to be hyper alert just to maintain the posture.
It's a fundamental conflict,
Yeah.
neurologically, between the form they demand
Yeah.
and the intention of deep surrender.
That makes a lot of sense. It's like pushing the brake and the accelerator at the same time.
Precisely. And this constant struggle, he argued, keeps the brainwaves mostly in beta, or maybe high alpha states.
Which are?
Beta is your normal waking consciousness. Active thinking, concentration, vigilance. High alpha is relaxed, but still very much awake and alert. You're maintaining that tension, that struggle.
So the fight against gravity itself becomes the barrier.
That was his key insight. The fight against gravity is a fundamental barrier to full, deep surrender.
Okay. So what happens when he lies down?
Well, when you go supine, gravity suddenly becomes your friend, not your enemy.
How so?
Your physical body can fully release. The muscles don't have that constant job of supporting the spine against gravity's pull. Everything can just let go.
And that physical release affects the mind.
Massively. It facilitates the shift into deeper brainwave frequencies, lower alpha, and crucially, theta states.
Theta? That's the dreamlike state.
Yeah, theta is associated with deep relaxation, dreaming, that state between waking and sleeping called hypnagogia, REM sleep, but also those powerful bursts of creative insight, integration.
So when the body truly surrenders, the mind is free to go deeper.
That's the idea. The purists might argue, oh, you'll just fall asleep.
Right.
But Ali's perspective, based on his sources, was that falling asleep is a natural biological need, not some kind of moral failure or failure of will. Sometimes the body just needs rest before it can go deep.
This whole realization, then, that true surrender needs physical allowance, not denial, it pushed him to look for alternatives.
Exactly. He started looking for an embodied alternative to static Zazen, and he found a really profound preference for Islamic prayer, salah or salat.
Wow. Okay, that's a significant shift
Yeah.
from Zen meditation to Islamic prayer.
It's a powerful comparison, isn't it? And it shows him drawing on his own cultural background, part of his heritage, to find a model that felt more authentic, more effective for him.
So how did he describe Sala in comparison?
He identified it fundamentally as meditation in movement. It's kinetic. It's built on flow, not stillness.
Flow, how does
Yeah.
that work in prayer?
Well, it involves this specific rhythmic cycle of postures. You have the qiyam standing, then the takbir declaring God's greatness, then ruku bowing from the waist, then sujud, which is the prostration, kneeling with your forehead actually touching the ground, and then returning to a seated position. But it's often transitional, not held for ages.
That sounds completely different from sitting motionless on a cushion.
It's the polar opposite of that stoic, static position. It's dynamic. It engages multiple muscle groups. It manages energy through movement.
And the breathing.
There's rhythmic breathing involved, and the physical transitions themselves, standing, bowing, prostrating, are considered formalized acts of mindfulness. They call it tarkib. The body is constantly engaged in this structured flow.
Preventing that stagnation he felt in Zazen.
Exactly. He argued it prevents the physical stagnation, the energy stagnation, the numbness, the pain he experienced sitting still.
So in Sala, the body is treated more like a vehicle for devotion, not something to be punished or ignored.
That's a perfect way to put it. The practice honors the body as a vehicle, not a cage. His conclusion was stark. Movement is life. Stagnation is a fast track to physical problems and stuck energy.
And he really felt he overturned centuries of tradition with this.
He summarized it pretty boldly in his notes, saying he felt he had shattered 1,000 years of postural dogma in one evening of honest self-observation.
Wow.
For him, true surrender came not through fighting the body into submission, but through allowing it to flow, to move, to participate fully in the act of devotion.
Okay, so Ali has this profound internal physical realization. He believes mandatory Zazen is actually hurting him biomechanically and maybe even spiritually hindering true surrender. What happens next? Does he just keep this to himself?
No, not at all. This internal realization inevitably spills outwards. It escalates into an external public conflict.
How?
Well, armed with this new conviction that Zazen was counterproductive for him, he skipped the required morning session, 7:30 a.m.
Ah, okay. They can see where this is going.
Exactly. And that's precisely where his personal truth slams right into institutional control. And that control manifested in the form of a class assistant, a guy named Daniel.
Daniel, and what was Daniel's reaction?
Textbook. Absolutely textbook example of how institutions, even ones that seem spiritual on the surface, enforce conformity. They use emotional leverage.
Meaning?
Ali misses the session. Daniel's immediate response isn't about the rules initially, it's the guilt trip.
Oh, boy.
He claims Ali had let him down personally by not showing up.
Oof, that's classic. Making it personal.
It's a very common tactic, right?
Yeah.
It shifts the whole conversation away from objective rules or policies and onto personal disappointment. It forces the person who stepped out of line into this defensive posture, rooted in shame or guilt.
Did it work on Ali?
Not in the way Daniel probably intended. Ali's response, which we actually have the draft of in the source material, it's just a masterclass in strategic non-emotional boundary setting.
Really? How did he handle it?
He immediately sidestepped the whole "you let me down" angle. He pivoted the focus instantly away from Daniel's manufactured feelings of betrayal and aimed it squarely at the cold, hard requirements of the course agreement.
Smart. Taking the emotion out of it.
Very clinical, very direct. He immediately demanded written confirmation. And I'm quoting here from his message. Please confirm in writing whether the 7:30 a.m. and 9 p.m. Zazen meditation is a mandatory, non-optional component of this course.
Okay, that's brilliant. Why?
Because it's tactically genius. It forces the institution to drop the emotional manipulation of the guilt trip and actually state its position clearly regarding the formal contractual rules. It elevates the whole thing from a personal tiff to a policy review.
Did he say anything else in the message?
Oh, yeah. He didn't stop there. He very clearly stated his own pre-existing priorities, which basically anchored his whole argument.
Which were?
He reminded them flat out that his enrollment was specifically for the yoga massage component.
Yeah.
That was his primary reason for being there.
Right.
And he also stated that he maintains his own highly structured personal morning and evening routines, which are important to him. He's essentially saying, look, I came here to learn a specific skill. I didn't sign up to surrender my entire internal framework or my personal routines.
So setting clear boundaries about his purpose and his time.
Exactly. And the message concluded with this very firm but actually quite collaboratively phrased ultimatum.
An ultimatum. What did it say?
He noted that if Zazen was indeed mandatory, non-optional, then, and I quote again, we would need to reassess the terms of my involvement in a way that is cohesive for all parties.
Wow. So basically, if this is required, maybe this whole arrangement isn't going to work.
Pretty much. It puts the ball squarely back in their court. And it's interesting, we noted when reviewing his draft, the original version had this casual sign-off, like hugs.
Hugs. Seriously.
Yeah. But he wisely took it out. He clearly realized it would undercut the formal, decisive, policy-driven tone he needed to maintain. Good call.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, but let's play devil's advocate for a second. Ali's response was strategic, sure. Effective, maybe. But was it? I don't know. Emotionally intelligent from a relationship perspective.
That's fair.
Couldn't we argue that Daniel, even though he used that institutional guilt trip language, maybe genuinely believed Zazen was crucial? That he was actually trying to enforce what he thought was best for Ali as a student?
That's a really valid counterpoint. It's entirely possible, even likely, that Daniel truly believed in the tradition and its methods.
Right. He probably wasn't just being manipulative for the sake of it.
Probably not. From his perspective, he might have genuinely felt let down because he believed Ali was missing out on something vital. That makes the interaction feel authentic, at least from his side.
So it's complicated.
It is, but Ali wasn't really negotiating a relationship at that point. He was negotiating his physical sovereignty, his bodily autonomy.
Ah, okay. That's the key distinction.
Yeah. This moment perfectly represents that core clash we talked about at the start.
Yeah.
You've got institutional control demanding rigid adherence to this ancient tradition
Stick to the rules, do the posture.
versus personal sovereignty demanding the right to trust your own body, your own process, your own lived experience. The institution wants uniformity. The sovereign individual seeks alignment.
And this clash, this tension, it leads to that really powerful philosophical conclusion you mentioned earlier, drawn from the source material. Remind us of that phrasing.
Any spiritual practice that requires betrayal of one's body is colonization under the guise of enlightenment.
Wow. Colonization under the guise of enlightenment. That's
Yeah.
incredibly potent.
It's dense, isn't it? And so relevant. It completely reframes forcing yourself through restrictive, painful practices. It's not discipline. It's a form of control.
How so? Colonization.
Well, if you're forced to ignore your body's pain signals, ignore biological warnings, force yourself into stagnation against your nature, you are essentially colonizing your own physical self, your own body.
Imposing an external system onto your internal reality.
Exactly. You're replicating the master's dogma, the institution's rules, internally overriding your own system. And this isn't just about Zen, right? You can see this metaphor applying everywhere.
Like where?
Corporate wellness culture that pushes burnout, enforced extreme self-improvement fads. Any system, really, that demands you negate your authentic internal needs for its own definition of success or benefit.
So true liberation, Ali argues, has to start with reclaiming sovereignty over your own body.
That's what the source insists.
Yeah.
His rebellion against Daniel wasn't just administrative quibbling. It was framed as an act of decolonization, reclaiming his own territory.
Okay, so Ali has pushed back. He's questioned the policy, he's refused the guilt trip, he's asserted his bodily autonomy. How does the institution, specifically the teacher, respond to this challenge?
Well, the pushback continued. After Ali made his stance clear, the Zazen teacher apparently recognized that, maybe the group's discipline was wavering a bit. Ali wasn't the only one struggling, perhaps.
So the teacher felt the need to reinforce things.
Exactly. And they deployed a very potent narrative weapon, a story.
Storytelling. Classic leadership tool.
And this was a story clearly designed to maximize emotional impact, to enforce discipline, not just through rules, but through aspiration, through the sheer awe of a magnificent promise of mastery.
What was the story?
It's a classic archetype you find across systems that demand extreme, long-term sacrifice. Got to sell the hard work.
Right.
You need a really magnificent, often kind of mythological promise at the end of the rainbow.
Makes sense. So the story was...
He was about a legendary monk.
Eh?
A monk who attained such profound samadhi, deep concentration, that he actually died while still sitting in the Zazen posture.
Died sitting up. Without falling over.
Without falling over, that's the claim. But wait, there's more.
Okay.
After he was cremated, his ashes, they supposedly produced physical diamonds.
Diamonds, like actual diamonds from ash.
That was the story told. Diamonds from the ashes of the perfectly focused deceased monk.
Okay. Wow, that's quite a story. Let's break that down. There seem to be a few distinct elements or myths fused together there.
Exactly. 3 fused myths, essentially. Let's start with the first part. The sheer physical feat of dying in the posture itself.
Is that even, like, a known thing in Zen? Dying sitting up?
Surprisingly, yes. It's a very real and actually highly sought-after aspiration in many Zen traditions,
Right.
particularly Sushit and Rinzai schools.
Really? What's it called?
In Chinese Chan, it might be called Zhongwang. In Japanese Zen, Nuju. The act of dying while seated is considered the ultimate sign of mastery, of attainment.
Why? What does it signify?
The teaching asserts that the monk's concentration, their samadhi, was so perfect, so unbroken, that the actual moment of biological death, which normally causes complete muscle relaxation, collapse.
Right, you just slump over.
Couldn't disturb their physical balance or posture. It's meant to convey this idea of non-attachment so complete that it transcends even the body's involuntary physical reaction to the cessation of life.
Wow. Okay, so it's not just about sitting still while alive, it's about achieving this absolute, unwavering focus right up until the very last breath and beyond, almost.
Exactly. It sets this incredibly high, almost superhuman standard for the students.
And that standard justifies the pain Ali was feeling.
That's the implication. It frames the struggle, the pain, the stagnation Ali was criticizing
Yeah.
as necessary steps toward this ultimate feat of concentration. It gives the suffering meaning.
Okay, so that's the first myth. The ultimate focus leading to death and posture. What about the second part? The reward. The diamonds.
Ah, yes, the diamonds, the fantastic payoff. This taps into the mythology of relics, the promise of physical transcendence
We're
almost.
talking relics,
Yeah,
like saints' bones in Catholicism.
similar concept. These alleged diamonds are what are known in Buddhism as sharia.
Sharia.
Yeah, they're described as these crystallized, sometimes pearl-like or jewel-like objects that are supposedly found among the cremated remains of highly realized spiritual masters, Buddhas, bodhisattvas, enlightened monks.
And the mythology says,
The mythology claims these are the physical manifestation of the master's accumulated purity, their wisdom, their liberated mind. Sometimes they're even believed to multiply spontaneously or glow with inner light. It's potent stuff.
and the teacher specifically used the word diamonds.
Right. Which really maximizes the hyperbole, doesn't it? It implies unparalleled value, rarity, permanence, a treasure beyond measure.
Okay. But Ali, being critical now, wasn't just accepting this story at face value, right? He looked into the Syria, the diamonds.
He did. He wasn't just debunking the pain anymore. He wanted the scientific reality check on these supposed miraculous relics. What's the actual material truth behind Syria?
What did he find?
Well, scientifically speaking, the appearance of these jewel-like objects in cremated remains is overwhelmingly attributed to, well, less glamorous things.
Like what?
Mostly calcified remains.
Yeah.
Things that are often found naturally in the body, especially in older individuals or those with specific diets or metabolic conditions. We're talking about things like bone fragments, calcium phosphate deposits, gallstones, kidney stones, even dense adipose tissue, fat tissue that might have accumulated minerals over a lifetime.
So basically, mineral deposits and stones that are already in the body. But why would they survive cremation when the rest turns to ash?
That's the key. It's the cremation process itself, especially traditional pyres.
Does so?
Traditional cremation often involves extremely high temperatures, but sometimes applied relatively slowly or with uneven heat distribution compared to modern crematoria. This slow, sustained, high heat can allow these really dense mineral deposits, the calcium, silica, calcium phosphate, to undergo a process called vitrification.
Vitrification, like turning into glass.
Exactly. They turn glassy or ceramic-like. They fuse and harden rather than completely disintegrating into fine ash like the softer tissues and lighter bone.
So the teacher was essentially presenting physics and chemistry as spiritual magic?
Pretty much. The faithful see the crystallized essence of a liberated mind. The scientist sees mineral vitrification under specific heat conditions.
So the story deliberately links the plausible, though extreme, feat of focus dying seated.
With this promise of physical immortality and treasure, the fake calcified diamonds.
It's an incredibly effective motivational tool, isn't it?
Absolutely. It attempts to tie the years of physical agony, the discipline, the seated suffering, directly to this magnificent, tangible reward. Your suffering will literally crystallize into treasure. It gives the pain a purpose, a glorious endpoint.
Right. So we ran this whole combined story, dying seated, plus the diamonds, through our BS scale rating based on Ali's analysis in the source material. Where did it land?
It landed pretty high on the scale. The overall BS rating for this combined narrative was 78 out of 100 BS.
78. That's quite high. How did you break that down?
Well, if you look at the components, the historical plausibility of actually dying seated, while it's extremely rare and maybe embellished, has some basis in Zen aspirations. Low probability, but maybe physically possible under extreme focus. We rated that part lower, maybe 35 BS.
Okay. Still unlikely, but not impossible.
Right. But the second part, the scientific basis for the diamonds, the Surya, presented as literal treasure resulting from enlightenment that's highly mythological. That part scored much higher, around 85 BS.
So the story blends a sliver of possibility with a large dose of myth.
Exactly. The teacher purposefully fused these narratives, and specifically used that loaded term diamonds, to maximize the emotional punch and reinforce the very discipline Ali was questioning. Endure the pain, because look at the glorious diamond-producing result.
But Ali, having already rejected the physical premise of the posture,
Now had the analytical tools to reject the mythological reward system too. He could see the strings. He saw how the story was designed to manipulate, to justify the suffering.
his internal sovereignty, his trust in his own body, was now fully armed with intellectual clarity as well.
Yeah. He wasn't just feeling the pain, he understood the game being played. And that set the stage for his next move, which was quite something. So Ali's journey has taken him from physical critique to policy challenge to mythological debunking. He's dismantled the rationale for the suffering, both physically and spiritually. What's left?
Action, moving beyond critique into, well, physical revolutionary action.
Exactly. And this is where the story takes a really sharp turn. It shifts from analysis and dispute into what Ali himself termed the glitch protocol.
The glitch protocol, I like the sound of that.
It represents the ultimate act of embodied freedom, of breaking the system from within, not by fighting it head-on anymore, but by creating a superior parallel reality within its cracks.
Okay. And how did this glitch manifest?
The source material describes something pretty extraordinary, right? A clandestine encounter.
Extraordinary is the word. Ali describes meeting an Irish voluptuous girl, as he put it, and the key detail here is when this encounter happened.
When?
During the mandatory Zazen period.
You kidding? Not kidding. The exact same time slot that the institution demanded absolute stillness, silence, separation, and the suppression of all desire.
Wow, so he wasn't just skipping Zazen anymore. He was actively reprogramming that sacred time slot with something completely different.
Something diametrically opposed, in fact. This wasn't just shirking his duties. This was a profound philosophical act, an active substitution of the system's prescribed ritual for a superior, personalized, deeply somatic one.
And there's more to it, isn't there? The cultural symbolism of the encounter itself.
Oh, absolutely. The sheer cultural synthesis happening in this act of union is, as Ali's notes describe it, electric. It speaks volumes about breaking boundaries, about embodied lineage, about rebellion.
Let's unpack that. You mentioned a council of the unbroken convened in this moment. What did he mean?
Well, first you have the Irish voluptuous girl. And in their conversation, Ali notes, she explicitly brought up the Jamaica-Irish connection.
The Jamaica-Irish connection. What's the significance there?
That connection itself is steeped in a shared history, a history of rebellion against colonial rule, forced migration, cultural fusion under pressure. Think about Irish indentured servants and enslaved Africans in the Caribbean. There's a deep shared legacy of resistance and cultural blending there.
So she herself embodies that spirit of defiance, of cultural fusion born from struggle.
Exactly. She represents that lineage of rebellion.
Right.
And then this meets Ali's own powerful, paradoxical heritage.
Remind us of his background.
He's half Tanzanian, representing, in his view, warmth, earthiness, African rhythm, the complete antithesis of that cold, ascetic stoicism demanded by Zazen.
Okay.
And he's half Russian, embodying perhaps deep soul, Slavic intensity, but also maybe a capacity for profound self-reflection, even a kind of stoicism, but on his own terms.
So it's this incredible fusion. Irish-Jamaican resistance meets Tanzanian warmth and Russian depth.
Yeah. He frames it almost as a cosmic geopolitical synthesis, achieved not through words or treaties, but through this passionate, intensely present, non-verbal communication. They are fusing these rebellious, grounded, complex lineages into a single, physical act of defiance.
Defiance against what?
Against the rigid, perhaps culturally narrow Himalayan Zen system they were both supposedly participating in. It's the ultimate rejection of the monastery's enforced stillness, its suppression of the body, its specific cultural norms.
Okay, let's really contrast the two activities happening simultaneously in that time slot.
It's stark, isn't it?
On one hand, you have the Zazen command.
Which dictates stillness, separation from others, from desire, from the body's signal sometimes, suppression of desire, focus on an abstract idea of purity or emptiness.
And on the other hand, happening at the exact same time, you have the Glitch Act.
Which embodies movement, union connection, intimacy, embrace of desire of life force, focus on tangible, immediate, sweaty truth.
It's the total inversion of the Zazen principles.
Completely. And importantly, this act was the fulfillment of Ali's initial realization about surrender. Remember the surrender paradox.
Right. That true surrender couldn't happen while fighting gravity while tense.
Exactly. He rejected Zazen because it created that artificial barrier forcing tension. And here, in this encounter, he found his path to true surrender, Not through ascetic, forced discipline, but through this intimate, passionate connection.
How so?
Because that kind of deep connection, that intensity, it demands absolute presence, complete, immediate, unadulterated focus in the present moment. A state of mindful awareness that he argues absolutely rivals deep meditation. Maybe even surpasses it because it's fully embodied.
He wasn't trying to escape the body, he was fully in it.
Precisely. He traded that abstract search for transcendence, chasing some dead monk's calcified maybe diamonds.
It's a tangible, sweaty truth.
Yeah. He swapped the system's definition of the sacred, denying the body, chasing relics for what the system would absolutely deem profane. The messy, passionate, profoundly human act of union.
And this connects back to his philosophy, right? The Nobody Protocol.
Yes. This encounter is the physical manifestation of that protocol. This is really key to understanding where he drew his power from, his sense of freedom.
Remind us of the protocol's core statements.
I am nobody, that's my power. And I glitch through temples, shatter norms.
Okay, how does being nobody translate into power, especially within a hierarchical system like a Zen school?
Well, think about it. In any institution, especially a traditional spiritual one, power resides in titles, roles, identities. You're the master, the senior student, the novice, the assistant, like Daniel. These roles come with expectations, rules, hierarchies.
Right. You have a place and you have to play your part.
But by declaring, I am nobody, Ali conceptually removes himself from that entire map. He refuses the label, refuses the assigned role. He becomes unlocatable within their structure, ungovernable by their rules.
Because the rules apply to somebody's within the system.
Exactly. He can't be let down, like Daniel claimed, because he's not playing the role Daniel assigned him. He can't fail to achieve the diamond reward because he's opted out of that whole game. He's nobody, so the system's leverage points, guilt, ambition, fear of failure, they just don't find purchase.
And the glitch protocol is how nobody acts.
It's the active methodology. It's about finding the cracks, the inconsistencies, the hypocrisies in the institutional facade, and inserting a radically authentic, embodied reality right into that void, glitching the system.
So in that mandatory Zazen hour, he wasn't Ali the struggling student or Ali the Tanzanian Russian guy with back pain.
No. In that moment, according to his framework, they were two forces of nature, operating outside the system's definitions, outside its rules. They were literally glitching the temple's schedule, reprogramming its most sacred controlled hour with the most primal, authentic human code. Connection, presence, life force.
So from his perspective, this wasn't a failure of discipline at all?
Quite the opposite. The sources define it as a supreme act of alignment.
Alignment with what?
Alignment with the deepest dictates of his own nervous system. The need for sensation, for connection, for movement, for authentic expression. He prioritized that internal truth over the 1,000-year-old dictates of the posture and the institution.
He made a trade.
A profound trade. He traded numbness for sensation, stagnation for circulation and flow, silence for shared, nonverbal expression, abstract purity for tangible, sweaty truth.
This was, as the sources put it, the birth of his own parallel reality.
The first sacrament of the glitch. A declaration of independence written not in ink, but in flesh and connection. Hashtag tag outro.
Wow. What a narrative. What a stunning journey we've just traced. From, the simple, sharp observation of a numb leg during meditation.
All the way through a formal policy debate, a systematic myth-busting of these supernatural diamond stories.
And culminating in this act of total embodied liberation, this glitch. Ali's path is it's a powerful testament, isn't it, to the importance of trusting your own nervous system, your own bodily wisdom, even when it contradicts centuries of dogma.
It really is. The path to transcendence, or maybe just authenticity, for this particular individual clearly wasn't found in that rigid denial, that stoic adherence to tradition that caused him pain.
No.
It was found in passionate, embodied embrace, in listening to that aching back, and in actively creating a superior parallel reality for himself right within the walls of the institution he was challenging.
Yeah.
His greatest spiritual breakthrough, ironically, lay entirely outside the prescribed painful form.
He essentially proved, at least to himself, that when a system asks you to betray your body, when it demands that kind of internal colonization just to maintain itself, maybe that system is worth glitching completely.
That act of rebellion, that embrace of the profane human connection over the abstract, imposed sacred, it was his highest form of reverence to his own authentic self, his own truth.
It really makes you think.
It does, and it raises a really important question, I think, for all of us listening. Ali's journey really forces us to confront it.
Yeah.
If spiritual perfection, or even just authentic living, is truly meant to be found through the body, as Ali ultimately discovered, then what other traditional rituals, or maybe just accepted practices or forms of suffering in our own lives?
You mean outside of a Zen school, in everyday life?
Absolutely. Things related to work, to fitness regimes, diets, self-improvement programs. How many of those are, in fact, subtle forms of colonization? Things we force ourselves through because we're told they're necessary for growth or success.
Even when our own bodies, our own intuition might be screaming bullshit, just like Ali's was.
Precisely. What are the things you might be doing solely because you were told they were mandatory, non-negotiable for progress, even if every fiber of your being resists? What parts of your life might need, well, glitching? Where do you need to reclaim your own sovereignty?
That is profound food for thought, a challenge, really. We hope this deep dive into Ali's glitch protocol encourages you, our listeners, to listen really closely to your own internal signals, your own nervous system.
And maybe, just maybe, to bravely question the dogmas, big or small, that might be causing you unnecessary pain or holding you back from your own authentic path.
Thank you for joining us on the deep dive.